Okay, so let's talk about the Paragon build for what I call vanilla Bulwark. I just mean it's not the low life variant. And, like full credit, I've looked at a lot of people's boards. So, like Moxie, who's phenomenal and who has fantastic hair, really very envious about that. I definitely, looked at his stuff. From the Bulwark Boys, a Discord, Insane Bob, I think that's how you say it. It's kind of missing some vowels, but I think that's how it is. I looked at theirs. Ace of Spades, I definitely looked at his. All these people are geniuses. My board is similar to, but not identical to any of theirs. Let me try to, again, I want, you can see the what. Like everybody can see the board, right? I don't want to do so much about the what. I want to talk a little bit about some of the whys. So, like, let's talk about why territorial. Increased damage to close targets. Oh my God, everybody who we want to kill is close, right? And so you see, with purchases from dexterity, I've got this, bumped up to 77% damage to close. That's who we're trying to kill as close enemies. A critical note that I went a long time without anybody, I didn't realize it, people didn't explain to me. As you go further along in these boards, glyphs, not the count on purchase, but the count on status. So let me find one in my, maybe I've used them all. Glyphs that count on status get harder. I'll find one in the board. Get harder and harder the further you go along. So there's certain glyphs you want to use early. You also want to have some idea, like territorial always runs off of dexterity. So you'd want to slot it someplace where there's a lot of dex to be had, right? If I was putting this in a glyph spot where there wasn't a lot of dex nearby, I'd be wasting it. You want to pay some attention to that. So here's the standard board, does what it does, right? Damage, damage to close, and damage in general. Again, as I said, sort of on the last guide, what do I like? I like damage to everybody. I like damage to everybody. I don't. That's my favorite, as opposed to damage to limited classes of people. I will say, almost everybody comes into Inner Beast as their next board. Almost everybody uses this orientation. Almost everybody grabs the nodes that I've grabbed. And that also means almost everybody skips Inner Beast. Just a note, we skip Inner Beast because Bulwark doesn't care about Spirit. You just don't use Spirit on any kind of a regular basis. It doesn't matter. We're a cooldown reduction based build. And that's an important way to start thinking about any build. Some builds are Spirit, mana, soul based. There's a consumable resource that you use to do the stuff that you want to do. That's some builds. Others are cooldown reduction builds. Some use a little bit of each. Bulwark, all kinds of Bulwark, are not Spirit based, they're cooldown reduction based. And so who cares about this? I don't care about Spirit costs. All right. I use Undaunted here for damage that I do. Well, Fortified, as you see, I got it stacked up to 97. That's quite a bit of damage. And I'm fortified a lot of the time, so this is almost always in effect. And again, that Undaunted always works off of int, right? So you'd want to slot it in a place where you've got a lot of intelligence, right, to be gained. You will find some people who will come over here and grab Shapeshifter. I think one or more of the people I mentioned come over here and grab it. Now, here's one of the things I mentioned in terms of hitting requirements. Like, I've got 510 out of the 270 dexterity. That second number, 270, that depends on what order this board is in. If I had picked Inner Beast as like my sixth board, the number here wouldn't be 270. It would be a much higher number. That's the thing. So I had got it screwed up. I thought it was a glyph. It wasn't a glyph. It's based on these rare nodes. That's a critical thing to take into account because you want to figure out what rare nodes on what boards are important to you and your build. And the most important rare nodes, the ones that you absolutely want to use and that you want to qualify for this bonus, they have to be taken early in your Paragon setup, or else you are not going to be able, by and large, to set up and qualify. And so I'm taking, obviously the glyph. We're taking determination. It's great, more armor, that's fine. It's not super necessary, but here's the problem. We are coming out of all three sides of this board. When you're coming out of all three sides of this board, entering from the bottom, like, it would be possible for me to avoid it, but if you actually do the math about how many we're spending, it's just quicker for me to step through, take determination, transit into the next board. It's not so much that I'm taking because I want to take it. I'm taking because it's on the way to getting over here, and I got to get over here anyway, right? Okay. Tenacity, maximum life, absolutely. 12% maximum life. Once we hit these requirements, that's a big deal. We're taking, the armor and the max life around them. I would love it if, like, this armor and max life swapped, because the armor I'm not super in love with. Again, at higher levels, the armor isn't that big a deal. And certainly, like, friggin' 50 armor is not that big a deal. You can tell that Blizz basically knows this, because they're making you take this armor in order to get to this glyph, right? Basically, however you come in, unless you were somehow coming from the side where you could transit around and just dead end, everybody's going to have to take this armor because they know that's not really what you want. Similarly, Havoc, what have I always said? This is a crit strike damage build. Bulwark is. So, always useful when you can get crit strike damage. Here's 45% additional crit strike damage. Physical damage, there's a lot of misunderstanding. Bulwark is a physical damage build. And so, that the Bulwark pop is a physical damage. And so the 10% applies for non-crit strike flavors of a Bulwark pop. We come out of this and we transit to the right for our third board. It's the first exit from Inner Beast, and that's Constricting Tendrils. A note on glyphs. I think what you will mostly see in most build guides is using bonus to rare nodes glyphs, like Shapeshifter. I don't care, honestly, very much about the additional bonus. Shapeshifting is a 20% chance to cause the skill's damage to critically strike. That's Claw for me. That's my Shapeshift. I don't care if Claw critically strikes. It doesn't matter. It doesn't do enough damage to make a difference. The additional bonus is irrelevant to me. But what I'm using, and what most build guides are using, is this rare node bonus, right? To get some value out of Courage here, 18% maximum life, plus 9, that's the enhanced value, right? Which you'd come over here and see 10%. So I don't know where they get that number from. I'm going to imagine that they're scaling it wrong. And then Nature's Will, nature magic skill damage again, because Bulwark is nature magic, right? And so this, just instead of seeing nature magic, just see 45% Bulwark damage. That's what we're here for. Plus another 22.5%, yada yada yada. That's where we are. What we're doing is we're just trying to use bonus to rare nodes to get maximum value out of these two very valuable rare nodes. Then we transit down here, Devastation, again, nature magic again, just here, Bulwark. That's what we're trying to get out of this. And we're picking some of these nature magic things around here. Again, if there was a way to get to this without damage to elites, I would do it. I don't care about damage to categories of people. I care about damage to all the people, right? So almost doesn't matter. I guess I could come over here and I could free this up and go and find a place. I actually think I just burned a point here because I couldn't find another good place to put it. If I'm remembering right, I can tell from here. Yeah, that makes this the fourth board that we come out of. And I say that because if it wasn't, then that int requirement for the bonus, that 350 int requirement, would be higher. So we come out, we come in, Inner Beast, we come into Constricting Tendrils. It's a dead end. You notice we don't transit. So then we just come back here. We run back up and through Havoc, Crit Strike, all day long. And then we come into Heightened Malice. And I think people have this in different orientations, this board, based on where they're entering from. But I think this is the series that everybody basically takes, is the glyph socket and what surrounds it. Here too, I'll just tell you, you come in, damage 2 poison enemies. Yeah, that's fine. Again, it's not my favorite damage 2 categories. Damage reduction from enemies that are poisoned, that's slightly better. I don't hate damage reduction from categories quite as much as I hate damage reduction to categories. To be frank, this is me spending a couple of points because there isn't there in this set of boards, there's not a great set of other places to spend like 8 points. You're not going to get as much value as you get from here, because you can see for everything that I'm doing, I could sort of take 1, 2, 3, and then I could take this and trance it out, and I could save basically all of these. Some of these are obviously done so that we satisfy the willpower here. And again, you'll notice 150% bonus to magic nodes. So we're getting a little bit more pop from these two. But, it's good. It's not what I guess I would call excellent. That's a 620. And let's just orient myself. Yeah, so that to me rings a bell that I think that this is now, you don't trance it out. This is the last board, just so that we're clear. Thunderstruck. This, I believe, is the next board that you take in order, Earth and Devastation. I do something different in this board than I think most people do. I think most people want you to come and collect Slayer down here. That's fine. Armor. If you're doing it in this order, you're not going to hit the bonuses. 740 willpower is insane. Unless you were spending gear slots, unless you're spending gear affixes on increasing your stats, you're never going to hit that. Plus which, it's not as important to our build, willpower. It's overpower. That's not that big a deal. Healing is not that big a deal. So it's not really a critical thing for us. You wouldn't want to stock up on 740 willpower. Almost everybody comes in and they take this central set right here with the glyph socket. I think almost everybody uses a bonus to magic nodes. I'm using Protector. You could use others instead if you want. Everybody takes Earth and Power again. Bulwark is Earth skills as well as nature magic. It's both in this build. And so we want to trigger that. It'd be great if I could satisfy this int requirement. I'd love it, another 33.8%. It's really not feasibly in the cards. As you can see, it would take another 60 from me. I don't think I would spend, for example, the gear slots that you'd have to spend to get there. And I think by this point, by your 5th and 6th boards, that's really where you're going to start not satisfying these requirements. Now, if you wanted to, you could, you'd say, well, I'm going to come over and I'm going to use it here instead. The problem is there aren't really great paths to get to this set and this set, Slayer and the things around that. There aren't really good ways to do it unless you're coming in from the right-hand side, and so I think a lot of people have it in this position, and we're all just kind of, suffering that we're not going to get it. We're not going to get this satisfied. I'll say I take this group here around Crushing Earth. A lot of people skip that. And so to me, we're talking about 3 plus 4, 7 points that gets us this 10% Earth skill damage and 50% critical strike damage to crowd controlled enemies, which, especially if you're running Poison Creeper, you'll have now and then. You get this, but let's just focus on Earth skill. This 10%, that 5%, that 5%, that 5%. So now you're 25% increased damage from Earth skill, right? That's Bulwark. That's why I come up and take it. I think this is a minimal point spend to get a lot of sort of payoff from this. I think you do see people come over here and take Resolve. I don't care about Resolve. I don't think that you should care about Resolve. 4% resistance to all elements. It's just not that big a deal. I like that Blizz keeps kicking me out. I think that is, again, a server-side resource problem on their end. Although I'm not moving, they certainly are aware. So we'll sit down. That chair does nothing but get in the way. By God, for once we'll use it to do something positive. So that's the, Earth and Devastation board. Come and do what is, for me, the last board. I think most guides will top at 6 boards. A friend of mine runs 7, and it is ripped down to the bare sort of bones so that you have enough points to make your way through 7. I looked at it really hard. I don't think it's advisable. I think you give up too much. It's min-maxing really almost at the expense of the build. You're missing too many things that are valuable. My 2 cents there. I think most build guides will tell you to just build 6 boards. Obviously, on the 7th board, you're never going to hit any bonuses for rares. As it is now, as you can see, I'm not hitting any of the bonuses for any of the rares. It's just not on the cards. It takes too much. I mean, 870 willpower is insane. I don't know that there are basically anybody who hits those kinds of numbers unless you've scaled your whole build for that purpose, which would be, at least for us, would be silly. Maybe other builds would benefit from that. I mean, you're coming in, you're transiting through Hubris. Basically, everybody will have you capture Hubris. Basically, everybody will have you capture this glyph slot. I think that some people will tell you to come and get Deluge, some won't. I think that some people will tell you to get Stormcaller, some won't. Here too, I think I did this. Stormcaller literally just to access this dex, right? Because the +7 dex here comes over, not only helps us satisfy the requirements, but again, for every 5 dex in the range, let's just say 10% of increased critical strike damage. So to me, this transit, I mean, you'd want to come this far to pick up this dex anyway, right? Now we do Storm Skill, don't care. It's just not that. But that's all to get to this dex spot, which we're using Spirit as a way to build on that dex set. That gets us what we want to have out of this setup. So again, I'm not taking Stormcaller for the sake of Stormcaller. Screw Stormcaller. I'd spend the point and have nothing here. It wouldn't matter. Storm Skill's not the issue. But critical strike damage is the issue. That's the why and the how of how this build works. It's Earth Skill, it's critical strike, it's nature magic, because that's all of that is Bulwark. Bulwark does the killing for us. We don't care about anything else for the most part. It's just about proccing and reproccing Bulwark, having it blow up and kill people. So long as you're doing that, everything else is going to be fine. You'll want, life when you can get life. You'll want damage reduction, when you can get damage reduction. Again, damage to elites, we don't care about that much. If I could figure out a place to move that, move it over here, 2% maximum life. I got to tell you again, at high levels, the 2% is irrelevant. It will save you 1 out of 100 times. Otherwise, if your Bulwark isn't up and the hammer falls, you're going to die anyway. 2% one way or another isn't going to save anybody. Hopefully, that not only gives you some idea how you transit through these boards, but much more importantly, you get why we're taking and not taking certain things, why we're taking them in the order that we're taking them. That's what's much more important. Other than that, you can pause the video, you can look, you can copy it. I'd much rather that you understand how these Paragon boards drive this build, because in late game, Paragon board is the most important. It provides way more stats that sort of enable you to do what you're doing. It is the critical aspect. Like, skill tree, obviously important, sure, absolutely. But I'd rather, and I think most people would say, I'd rather that you have a suboptimal skill tree than that you have a suboptimal Paragon. You can get by with a suboptimal skill tree where you put a couple points where you shouldn't have put them, rather than, if you've skipped out on getting, some things that will help you max out this build. So I hope that's helpful. And again, if not, tell me, what you think about my mother in the comments. See ya.